people are being affected and impacted. Our Buddhist temple here, or Buddhist monk, they have been known to be the scholar, to be the intellectual. Temple known to be the resource center, to be a place for refuge. So the engagement here that, the monk, the temple community can teach the Cambodian community about deportation, about their rights, about the immigration law, about the impact, what can they do with it. And in addition, temple here are not being used for our community, especially my Cambodian temple. I have 6 Cambodian monks here with us today, and there's a lot of unused resources. We can use that to help those that are impacted so that their family can fight to release their loved ones. And in the US, I'm not religious places, hospital, schools, these have been known to basically a sanctuary for their members who have been treated unfairly against their belief. So I too believe that our temple can do the same thing. The US federal government respects other people's belief, and they have not yet invaded the space of other different beliefs. This doesn't mean that we hide them from the government. The government is aware of these individuals. They just respect, they just let it go. So instead of staying in detention, for example, they would just not do anything and let people fix the issue with them individually. So there's so many things that can do that our community still suffer a lot through wars and genocides. Our temple, our Buddhist community can be a filling gap between our community and the institution. So this is what I'm seeing, that we have the space to do this. So this is a good opportunity for us to really open up.
We'll come back and ask you some further questions in detail. I'd like to introduce the third presenter, who is a juggler of microphones. This is Sarwang Parikh. Sarwang is a psychotherapist in the Bay Area, and he's working primarily with youth and people of color. He's wearing his Buddhist Peace Fellowship t-shirt. He serves, I got a laugh, that's interesting. He serves on the board of Buddhist Peace Fellowship, and Sarwang also teaches mindfulness in the schools and organizations, and he's focusing on fostering social emotional wellness. He's a founding team member of the Bay Area mindfulness nonprofit Seeds of Awareness, and he's a community teacher and Sangha member at the East Bay Meditation Center. So we'd love to hear from you. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Alan. Can you hear me back there? Great. I think so. Thank you so much for both of you all to introduce where you're coming from, the roots of this lineage and this connection. I really bow to the struggles and representation that brings into this context. I feel so privileged to get to represent so many beautiful gems and vehicles of mindfulness and these traditions here, through Buddhist Peace Fellowship, which I'll speak more primarily about what we get to do within that container, Seeds of Awareness, which brings in this social emotional awareness and healing into schools, into communities, through therapy and counseling, and this beautiful urban refuge and retreat space that's here, East Bay Meditation Center, that's one of the most radical and inclusive spaces I've been able to practice with. So if you're local, I very much recommend going to the heart of Oakland to sit in Sangha there. How many people are familiar, just to raise a hand, with Standing Rock? Just the struggles of Standing Rock. I want you to reflect on, if you were moved by that struggle, why were you moved? Just consider what moved you within that struggle of Standing Rock. And for those of you that may not have context for that, there was a very particular movement to block what was happening, the devastation of native pathways of land and river for oil pipelines in Dakota. And so one way that we at Buddhist Peace Fellowship connect with Standing Rock, it represents this classic example, this indigenous direct example of being able to harmonize and reharmonize with what is one of our kind of our own precepts of the energies of block, build, and be. And so I'll speak a little bit more about that context in hopes that those energies serve all of us and we can connect with them in our own ways that the Dharma wheel spins within us. And so particularly with Standing Rock, it's blocking these energies of harm and injustice, right? And how do we block that within our own society, within our own selves, the perpetuation of violence and harm. And then to build inspiring new pathways, new ways of connecting with community, to reconnect with land, with ourselves, and in service of what is allowing us to really being in alignment with spiritual truth and sacred life, Buddhist, non-Buddhist. How do we connect with the sacredness of our life? And so that's really these energies of block, build, and be that kind of are some of the foundations that Buddhist Peace Fellowship supports movements and people in many spheres to align with and around as an organizing principle. And it can be applied to really any movement form, from environmental justice to immigration and struggles of migrants all around the world and here, to demilitarization, Black Lives Matter, gender justice that was spoken earlier, right? How do we block? How do we build? How do we be inside of that? And you might have your own examples of how you're doing that within your family, within your communities, within those containers that you're inside of. And locally, one way to think about it, one way we reflect is, you've heard this, think global, act local. Yeah. How many people are familiar with West Berkeley Shell Mound? Raise your hand again. Again, another really valuable struggle here that is continues and has celebrations, but continues to be a place where the West Berkeley Shell Mound is like a way of reconnecting with the sacred of the Ohlone people of this land and their ways of honoring burial sites that are really honoring their ancestry. That is being occupied by us, by folks that weren't really asking permission. Yeah, that came into the space. And so there's this way of how do we build pathways to reconnect with the remembrance of these people that are still here. And so the West Berkeley Shell Mound is another place where Buddhist Peace Fellowship gets to practice within, sitting in relation to help people wake up to what now, if you've been to Emeryville and Shell Mound, it's a very large consumer space. It's a big mall. It's very different than a burial site that's still right there underneath the earth. So if you're local to that, I invite you to kind of stay vigilant to see how you can support and struggle and connect with that movement, and maybe in places in your own home bases if you're not from the Bay. Another place here is the Sigoroya Land Trust, and it's a way to really, it's a women's-led, Native Indigenous women's-led place of practice to really help redistribute access to indigenous stewardship of this land in the Bay Area, the San Francisco Bay Area. So there's a shooting land tax that you can contribute to. So it's another way just to contribute. How do we build new ways of connecting to recognize there's systems of injustice that represent how we even get to be in the privilege of these seats that we're in here, me sitting here with this microphone. Like, how do I participate? How do we get to participate? And there's so many beautiful examples of non-Native folks and Buddhist folks separating Native communities. June Yasuda, Luis Dunlap, the Nipozan Moyaji order. There are some leaders that kind of honor this ongoing interweaving, interrelationship, as Thich Nhat Hanh would say, the interbeing of our communities, that our struggles are not separate. These identities, these aggregates are really just, just a way in a lens that can often be divisive. So how do we really connect with these struggles? Just a week ago, on June 22nd, there were Buddhist friends that did a 3-week peace march across Massachusetts to connect and commemorate Native Americans killed by European colonization in that time. And these struggles of colonization, immigration, climate are really still connected. We were speaking about just how immigration continues to be such a violent form that we very much are connected to, and many folks here I can recognize that might come from a lot of migration patterns, including myself here. Last week, Japanese American groups protested in Fort Sill in Oklahoma, and it was getting notoriety because it was used for the Japanese internment camps in World War II. And it's now, that same site is the detainment camp for migrants today. Right? It's migrant children. So you can see these interconnections of histories, and it's lesser known that in the 1800s, 1886, when that was the same place where Native Americans were held. Right? So you can see that these legacies continue here in this really, these karmic bounds of our own social identities. And so how do we recognize within this practice a vehicle to disrupt that, to build something differently? And incarcerating folks for being non-white and not in a dominant form is not new history. It's a deep, deep racial hierarchy. And how much of this is connected to really the impact of climate change, climate justice, that we can see that, again, folks that would be the most vulnerable would be the first folks that are affected by the changes in temperature, the fires that are happening in Sonoma and different parts of California, globally in different places that are much more closer to where water lines would be rising and threatened in that way. Yeah. And then we know that the Buddha taught that these energies are just blocking harm and building new pathways are not enough. It's really, how do we see this space of being? How do we really become present? Like, I can feel the sense of receptivity from you all right now. It's like this way of allowing our movements to be sustainable by really seeing them through being present with each other, present to what's happening alive in our communities, and how that can transform things. So, to be with the reality of the struggle, that we can work with the goals like we can towards liberation, nirvana, awakening, and yet the reality is like, here's suffering. How do we accept this? Be compassionate to each other inside of this, knowing that awakening is many, many lifetimes ahead, perhaps. And yet here we are still working to be awake with each other as somehow. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarwang. A couple of things occurred to me before I ask some more questions. Just first of all, that Sarwang touched on the debt that we owe to the Native American ancestors whose land this was, and this, in many ways, it still is. We need to remember them. It's also so important for us to remember and acknowledge that the Dharma that we are practicing was brought to us by teachers from all over Asia. And we have many representatives in the audience, and I know that my teachers and my teachers' teachers have been made that difficult journey because they had passion to plant the seeds of Dharma, and they thought this was going to be fertile ground. And I also recognize we're all here in this room together But the real challenge is actually to meet outside this room, to be engaged with each other outside this room, to understand about the variety of communities that we have here and then we have around the world. When we sat down to lunch this afternoon, I sat down with Pankaj and Marlai, and they had a wonderful conversation about the realities of their communities, the particular human needs that they have, the practices that they may share, the practices that may have been different. And, you know, I notice, I saw my friend Tan Manu, who is one of the, one of the senior monks at the temple that's right down from the block from me at Berkeley Zen Center. And, you know, we've been friends for 20 years or so, but I recognized that hardly anybody from my Berkeley Zen Center community goes down and has any working knowledge or relationship with the monks or the community that's literally 200 feet down the block. And we're all Buddhists, right? That I would say reciprocally, you never see any of the, won't see the monks coming up to see what are they doing in that Zen center. So we're encapsulated in our communities and maybe going deeply into our traditions in those respective communities. But sometimes it's really hard to walk down the street and find out what's going on there, and find out what might I learn. That's the most important thing. What can I learn there? What can I learn about a culture? What can I learn about a tradition? What can I learn that can open my mind to the Dharma, that can open my mind to the common humanity that we share? And this goes across many lines. It goes across incarcerated, unincarcerated. It goes across racial lines. It goes across ethnic lines. And I'd like to hear, is that okay for Pankaj? How are you crossing those lines from your community that's here in the United States?
Definitely. We are seeing that we need to kind of reach across to one another. We have to help lend out our hands. And that is what I was talking with Marlai earlier at the lunch table. That please count us in. I know you are trying to see that you are struggling with resources, trying to bring your struggle to the forefront. And I'm doing the same thing. We are trying to bring our struggle to the forefront of the world, and trying to see that the other Buddhist nations, the other people who are practicing Buddhist, other people who believe in these principles of equality, justice, fraternity, will step up and say something about it. But they wouldn't unless they know about it. So that is what we are trying to come, and we need to do and project these problems that, okay, this society, so for example in India, I need to come out and say the Indian society got the political democracy, but they don't have any social or economical democracy. The worth in India is still decided by the birth, which is as per the Chaturvarnya goes in there. It's still the norm of the day-to-day. All the problems that people talk about in the political structure there, they talk about reservation, which is like affirmative actions here. That is all based on the rights of the people that are born into the privileged society, that they are getting hampered with this kind of policies being implied by the government. So I see it's a very, very difficult problem, and the solution has to come from Buddha's teaching. That a lot of times it is said like Buddha, when people talk about Buddhism, they say peace, loving kindness, metta. Those things come to the forefront. Did Buddha not taught equality? Did he not taught social justice? Did he not taught fraternity? Those things don't come to the forefront. That is the basis of the socially engaged Buddhism. And coming to the point, I just wanted to see that we at least Ambedkarite Buddhists, the followers of Dr. Ambedkar who came to this one, we learned about these things from his well-written book called Buddha and his Dhamma. And what Dr. Ambedkar tells there is he classifies as three things in Buddhism. He says something is Dhamma, then something which is not Dhamma, and then third thing he says something which is Saddhamma. So Saddhamma is Dhamma going beyond Dhamma. That is Saddhamma. Very nice, going beyond that. And when he says that a Dhamma to be Saddhamma has to promote or create and must destroy all the barriers between person and person. So we have seen our earlier panels talk about gender equality. We have seen you talking about problems in Cambodia. You have mentioned a lot of problems that I am not even aware of that happen on this land here. Well, I'm a new fellow here, so I cannot come with my own problems here. But if it's not able to promote, destroy those barriers between person and person, then that is not the Saddhamma. That is what Baba Sahib says. Then he says, like, what is Saddhamma? Saddhamma must teach that your worth is not, your worth will decide your worth and not your worth. That is how it needs to come up with. Then also he says that the Saddhamma to be, the Dhamma to be Saddhamma must promote equality. That is all we are asking for in the socially engaged Buddhism format. One of the solutions that Baba Sahib proposed for a socially engaged Buddhism, that he says, or he questions basically, he raises a question that what must have been the motive for Buddha to form a Bhikkhu Sangha? Was he trying to create a perfect person? Or was he trying to create a servant in the society? Buddha says, Charita Bhikkhave Charikam Baujan Hitaya Baujan Sukhaya. So he orders the Bhikkhu Sangha, go for the benefit of the many. Go around the world, spread the Dhamma. That's what Buddha is ordering to his Sangha. And Baba Sahib expects the exact same thing out of Bhikkhu Sangha. So that is another resource we were talking about that we need to tap into. The monastic attachments that we have, the monastic ways of life that we have. We expect in our social problem, we are part of the same society. These monastic life, they are away from it, they are not aloof from it. They can't be aloof from it, they are dependent on each other. The Upasaks, the lay people, and the Bhikkhu and Bhikkhuni Sangha, which are the monastic people, they are dependent on each other. And the social problems that are arising here is going to sooner or later affect them, and they have to work, we have to work with them to create and help it out, to eradicate these social problems. And I think doing that is taking Dhamma to the Saddhamma level. So that is what I am coming from, that is what I wanted to bring up. And these principles that I see are in there in Buddhism, and we are trying to kind of bring it to the forefront that Buddhism has these principles already laid in there. We have to just tap in and see that we are struggling today. Somebody else will be struggling tomorrow. Their problems may be different. Our problems were different. We struggled for almost 1,000 years of untouchability and caste, the bad effect of caste systems throughout India. And it takes us time to come to a conclusion where we see like, okay, we find our solace, we find the path to end those discriminations on a personal level, not on a social level yet, in Buddhism. We need to take that to the personal level, to upgrade it to the social level. We need to make it a socially engaged Buddhism. That is what I bring forward to, that is what I am looking forward to. And please accept my inclusion in your struggle, you do the same way. We just wanted to see that we all each other stand with each other and help solve our problems and put it towards the end.
Thank you, Pankaj. I want to just applaud. I know that they have at the Ambedkar Association table, they have some copies of Dr. Ambedkar's The Buddha and His Dhamma, and you can avail yourself of that. There you go. Marlai, I'm curious, how could we help your community? How could we be of use to it? How could we serve it?
Thank you, Alan. Yes, we are one as a Buddhist community, and this is a good opportunity for us to connect with each other. We have our knowledge and strength that we can all share, and we also have our weaknesses as well. So this is a good way to get connected and then share our knowledge, share our wisdom, and then take action individually. As for me, the little knowledge I know about the Dhamma, I know that we're here for a purpose, and that purpose is doing good things to help others, because we're all going to go, and the only thing we can take with us is just our good karma. And what's the use of if we don't take the opportunity and do as much of good karma as we can while we're here? I don't understand why we don't do it. So we have great opportunity to provide the service to the best of our ability, use all our resources. We cannot take anything back with us. So this is a good opportunity. I think it's a connection, great, and resources. It doesn't have to be money. It could be, knowledge. It could be word. It could be a combination of everything, because we need all kinds of things. All of us need that. So a question back to you: how would we stay connected?
I saw Mr.
With this part of the community?
I know he is.
That's a really good question. And I don't have the answer quite yet, but I know that the people on the panel, we are now connected. And there are people in the audience, if you want to connect with any of us, just come and talk to us.
Can the global conference committee connected all of us? Do you think? Yeah?
That would be great, yeah.
You all agree? We need it? Yes? Yes? Thank you.
Thank you. Sarwang, I'm curious, there's perhaps a distinction or a line that we haven't spoken of that I would love you to speak to if you wish, which has to do with generations and age. I think you're probably younger than I am. Not in my mind. In my mind, I'm still like 24.
Yay.
My body, no, 71. But what do you see as the creative edge of those differences?
Such a beautiful and salient question, reflection. I'm reminded that, in my migration here to the States when I was 5, my connection to eldership was very much affected. So my connection to grandparents and ancestors became disrupted in that. And so, to reconnect with these streams of this Buddhist practice, with indigenous practices, part of this work for myself has been to reconnect with the intergenerational areas of learning, that there's so much, none of this is new. It's been done, and the struggles have continued forward from the legacies of so many folks that I get to sit here from. And so my remembrance about that is something around learning from the wisdom from folks that have come before me, that are older than me, that have gone through struggles that I have not yet experienced within this state and context. And just even the history, Pankaj, you were mentioning that your family comes from within the Ambedkar tradition. Within my own Indian, Hindu upbringing, there's such a wisdom thread there that intergenerationality brings. And then I think I work with young people a lot, seeds Disease awareness works and centers young people and families, and what I continue to discover is that, which is it's a thing that is existent within a lot of communities I've come in contact with, which include some of the Hindu dominant Indian traditions, that age also has this hierarchy, and young people are not really held in the same wisdom capacity as eldership would hope, and yet when I spread, working within mindfulness in classrooms or with a young person, I am extremely astounded by the level of wisdom and the gems of how quickly their awareness rises. The lotus that's available for them, there's a lot more mud for us as we get aged, is my experience, that we have to come through to rise into some awareness.
But that's where the nutrients are.
It's true. It's true. There's no better or higher. But it's something about learning to, as I've gotten to sit and circle with young people from really young, like 5, 4, 3 years old, to ask them and be asked such poignant questions, learning how to listen with the same esteem as I would an elder. And what happens in between is such a powerful synergy. There's because in inheritance, that generation is inheriting the future that we're breeding right now. They have to live through the struggles that we're seeing as a community, and all these points of violence that we reflected on.
They also have an inherent instinct or passion for justice.
Yeah, that's really true. And to see so many young people come galvanized in the midst of these struggles right now that we've just this year alone has been it's tremendous. They're not asking, they're recognizing and rising up, and so I think what's possible to synergize between all of our intergenerational connections is such a necessary medicine.
Well, thank you. Our time is almost up, and we've had wonderful representation from Sarwang and Marlai, Pankaj, and what occurs to me is something that my teacher's teacher had this expression, Suzuki Roshi. He had an expression that said, to shine one corner of the world, which means if all you can do is just turn your light on and illuminate one corner, that is your work. As wide as that corner can be, that's great. But if you can just shine one corner of the world, if you can just pick up one thread and follow it back to the whole cloth, then to me that is that's a vision that brings forth social justice and the end of suffering that we yearn for. So I hope we will take that to heart, and I hope we will all get to meet and talk about this person to person, group to group. And also I should say that we have a breakout session at 5 o'clock, I believe, what does it say on there? 5 to 5:30 at Stephen's Lounge, which is across the plaza. So with that, thank you, Pankaj, thank you, Marlai, thank you, Sarwang, and thank you to the organizers and to all of you.
Thank you very much.